unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Oh man, Team David Benavidez says Canelo is worn. He's a tough fight, but David Benavidez can beat Canelo. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Now head over to the Patreon, sign up. I don't want you guys to miss anything. I'm shifting some of the content to the Patreon. So if you're a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member, you know, buckle up because we're going to have some fun and we're going to get it popping over there. To become a YouTube channel member, hit the join button next to the subscribe button. It gives you more information. Patreon, link in the description in the affiliate section. It does help the channel when you guys click on that link, and I got a lot of stuff coming. Another great way to support is to go to ESPN Plus, the link also in the description. Click that ESPN Plus link, get the bundle, ESPN Plus, Hulu, Disney Plus, all three apps, one price, $12.99. And it does help the channel when you guys click on that link. And there's a ton of content there. Now let's get it. David Benavidez, Pop's trainer, he did an interview, link in the description. And he says, as far as fighting Canelo, that would be the toughest fight ever. And it gets me nervous because Canelo's the face of boxing. But David is bigger and we're going to have to use our jab a lot. Canelo likes to throw big hooks. A lot of people don't know it, but straight punches will beat anything. Once you throw the jab, it neutralizes the hook. And Canelo's not going to be able to land that hook. He's really good with the counter hook. A lot of people make a mistake of trying to hit the face instead of hitting the chest. Anybody can move the face and their head, but the chest and the stomach is there all the time. So we will have to work the chest and stomach. So by the time he throws the hook, it will bounce back. Use the jab from distance and hit the stomach, hit the body, and then come with the right hand. Try and throw a lot of straight punches, because if you try and you stay with him, he's good at what he does, but if you stay in close distance, but there's no need for that. You know, he goes on to say Canelo has already had a lot of fights. He's very young, but he's worn. I haven't seen Canelo with his knee brace, but those knees aren't good anymore. He's not the same anymore. That's why we want to fight him, because he's done a lot already in the business. To me, he's a little bit worn. He's fought a lot of good people. A lot of people don't give him credit. He got hit a lot by Kovalev. That fight, to me, Kovalev was winning all that fight, and then I don't know what happened. And then he fought Golovkin too. He got hit with big shots. He was the best. He's had so many fights. He's been dedicated to the game, disciplined, but the body wears out. That's what I think. He's had so many fights and he's a little worn out a bit. I don't think those knees are even at 70%. So I think our team, David Benavidez, have a pretty good chance. But don't get me wrong, that's a very dangerous fight and anything can happen. But like I said, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Right? Listen, I'm loving the talk from Team Benavidez. They talking that talk. I really like David Benavidez. You know, the Benavidez brothers. Cover some of their fights. A lot of them, actually. I covered Crawford versus Jose Benavidez. You know, David Benavidez, Anthony Durrell, David Benavidez, a couple of his fights. And he's a beast. You know, he's very young. I forget sometimes because of his size and stuff. And the way he looks, he looks like he's older than what he actually is. You know, he's a champion again. Canelo moved to 75, gave up the belt, you know, after beating Kovalev. So I'm assuming he's going to fight from 160 to 168. 175, the only other, who's he going to fight? Bivol, who's been calling him out, or Beterbiev. Those are the best fights there. Even the Vodstick fight is hard because you're giving up all those guys are skilled with power. Some of them move. Some of them have crazy power like Beterbiev. And Canelo would be clearly the shortest guy there. So Canelo may campaign at 168. He might be able to make 160 and taper back down to that. I don't know. That's why you don't want to play with your weight too much. Kind of like what Canelo did is what Mikey Garcia did. You can't keep, when you're pushing 30, you can't really float between 3 divisions. That's not really safe. My favorite fighter, Roy Jones Jr., went to heavyweight and then he tried to jump back down 175 or whatever, and then he gets knocked out. You see what I'm saying? So when you're pushing a certain age, 30s or better, I feel like your body's going to start going through changes. Metabolism slows a bit, and it's just not good to be trying to compete. Mikey Garcia, Canelo did the same thing. Mikey Garcia said he wanted titles at lightweight. He was the champion at 135, champion at 140. Then he says he wants to fight Errol Spence. I see something. And people were like, what do you see, Mikey? I see something. And it was like, don't fight Errol Spence. What are you doing? His dad didn't want it. His brother didn't want it. But he said he's seen something. Then, we seen him lose to Errol Spence every single round. And now he doesn't have a professional, unblemished record anymore. So you don't want to float between too many divisions. So I don't really see Canelo choosing to fight at 175 because a lot of those fights would be super dangerous. And I don't know that all of the names like Vodstick and Bivol, I don't know how much of a bell that they would ring to the point where it would warrant the danger. You see what I'm saying? Like, they're not the biggest names, but they present difficult fights. Beterbiev, Canelo ain't finna fight no Beterbiev. I'm not even gonna go in there. But his team said that Kovalev's better than Beterbiev, even though Beterbiev beat Kovalev twice in the amateurs. And if Beterbiev, his name was there instead of Canelo Kovalev, I think without any struggle, like Jose Benavidez Sr. is saying, I think Beterbiev would have slept Kovalev, and it would have been a lot easier than Canelo. And it's funny because listen to everything I say on the channel, and then you hear professionals and trainers and boxing teams, people who get paid through boxing, they say stuff eerily similar. That's how you know it's that new media. You hear Benavidez right here, and he's saying that he said Kovalev was winning the fight, which is precisely what I told you. Same thing Jose Sr. said, Jose Benavidez Sr. Kovalev was definitely winning the fight, and then out of nowhere, this miraculous fight combination around the guard and all that. That Canelo Kovalev, I don't care what nobody says. That fight looked FAF, and y'all know what that means. That it looked so scripted. It didn't even look. It looked FAF, man. But anyway, that's what Benavidez is saying, the same thing. Kovalev was winning, and then all of a sudden he just loses in the blink of an eye, which we know can happen in boxing, but it looks very skeptical when Canelo has not slept Chavez Jr., who was literally a walking punching bag and weight drain. He didn't sleep Liam Smith like that. He dropped him to the body. He didn't sleep Golovkin in 24 rounds. He didn't sleep Floyd Mayweather. Didn't sleep Erislandy Lara. He didn't sleep who else did he fight? I don't even know who else he fought right now off the top of my head. Danny Jacobs. He didn't have these type of performances, but you go all the way up to 175 in a fight where multiple people, myself, Jose Benavidez Sr., are saying you lost or you were losing, and then all of a sudden you just pull some rabbit out the hat and show this phenomenal 175 power. And another reason why it looks FAF, the Canelo Kovalev fight, I literally don't care who say what. It don't add up to me. But another reason why it don't add up to me is because let's say it was all true and there was nothing weird, no rehydration clause, it's just all, that's what happened. Why would you not stay at 175? Why would you not continue fighting at 175 knowing that you have this type of power and you're able to lose several rounds and be down on the scorecards and then put it together and show this new 2-3 punching power, strength where you can knock out someone brutally who's much bigger than you and who's out jabbing you the whole fight, and now you can just get on the inside and really rock him so badly with one punch. It was like 2 punches that knocked out Kovalev. It doesn't look realistic, not one bit. So anyway, if it was realistic, why didn't he stay at 175 and fight Benavidez? Next question. So regarding David Benavidez, I told you, the walls are closing in. David Benavidez recently called out Canelo. He said he's a great fighter. I would love to fight him. End of story. David Benavidez wants that smoke. And David Benavidez, his team has recently said and responded to Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo said he would move up to 68 and possibly fight Benavidez. These are great fights. So the walls are closing in on Canelo Alvarez because I told you, people are getting sick of these scripted, manipulated fights where you're fighting people who look like a shell of their former self. They look faded. They look deteriorated. They look like they're no longer the same force that they once were. And you got all these young, hungry guys who are looking crazy good, like David Benavidez, like I've told you. You got Caleb Plant, who can box his ass off, sweet hands. You got Artur Beterbiev, who's just super powerful and experience, was tough. You know, Beterbiev looked like the Terminator fighting Vodstik. Vodstik was doing some good work. He had a great coach, Teddy Atlas. He was doing some real good work, and Beterbiev was just walking through it like it was nothing. And we know Vodstik has some power, and he's an Olympian. So Beterbiev's a beast. You have Demetrius Andre, who's a beast and an Olympian. You have Charlo, who's a beast. So notice how Canelo, his names in the running were Caleb Smith, who was coming off a bad performance where a lot of people said he lost to John Ryder, who nobody knows, and Billy Joe Saunders, who may have, got himself in some trouble and not be able to fight Canelo with this pandemic and the backlash he's got from the video he posted. And now he's talking about he wants to fight. Canelo saying he wants to fight Gennady Golovkin. It's looking bad, man. It's looking bad for DAZN as well, because they're promoting fights that are past their expiration date and trying to force feed us Canelo versus Triple G. And you got a guy like David Benavidez. And guess what? Let's see if we hear Canelo's team respond. So like I said, the walls are really closing in, because what can you say? And what Canelo said and his team said was BS, talking about we don't prefer to fight a guy of the same heritage. We don't want to fight a Mexican fighter. I mean, that's BS. Boxing doesn't work like that. If you're the best, then you have to fight the best. Imagine if a black fighter said, I don't want to fight a fellow black fighter. I don't want to fight my African brother. What if Deontay Wilder said he don't want to fight Daniel Dubois? He don't want to fight Anthony Joshua. He don't want to fight an Afro-Cuban like Luis Ortiz because he doesn't want to fight someone with similar skin tones and complexions and upbringings. I mean, what if Terrence Crawford was not calling out Errol Spence because he said, I'm not fighting my brother? That's one of the lamest things that I've heard out of the Canelo camp, saying that they don't want to fight. And it's a disrespect to the Mexican legends, the guys like Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales, who scrapped and gave us wars, a trilogy of wars to prove their worth. Guys like Oscar De La Hoya, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. gave us 2 fights of nothing but pure heart and determination and skill. Guys like Juan Manuel Marquez and Orlando Salido and Juan Manuel Marquez and Barrera, these legends who risk it all and fought whoever they needed to fight. And the other reason why it sounds dumb for Canelo to say that you don't want to fight a fellow Mexican is because it's boxing. It's a business. It ain't nothing personal. It doesn't mean you're a sellout or you don't love or rep where you're from. And you should want to give, if you're, just be prideful and give your fight fans and rep where you're from in the best way you know how, by winning. It don't matter who you fighting. Just give the best account of yourself in the best fights. So Canelo, aside from that, he really has no excuse to not fight a guy like David Benavidez. He's a 2-time WBC champion. The WBC is a coveted belt in boxing with Mexican roots, founded in Mexico. Jose Sulaiman, now ran by Mauricio Sulaiman, right? So it's a prestigious belt. And you have David Benavidez's camp who's saying, guess what? Canelo ain't the same. He's worn. He's a tough fight, but his body's breaking up. He's been through so many wars, and we're ready for it. And we can beat him. And they're telling you little snippets of the game plan. I would love that fight. And the fight makes so much sense no matter where you put it. You could put that in Vegas. You could put it in New York. You put it definitely in Texas. I was at David Benavidez's fight with J. Leon Love in Texas. It was on the Errol Spence Mikey Garcia card. There was a very strong Hispanic following and just fans in general, black, white. A ton of fans came out for that fight, and the crowd gave him like a standing ovation after he got his knockout, David Benavidez. So it would just be a big event. So DAZN got some serious questions. They're paying Canelo all this money, which is great. That's their business. They want to pay him whatever they want to pay him. But when are you going to get a return on your investment by trying to make the fights? And Canelo is one of the rare people in boxing who got it going on, and he can mandate and dictate the fights that he wants to have. Like guys like Terrence Crawford, unfortunately, he's not in a position like Canelo. So he wants to fight Mikey Garcia, Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, Sean Porter maybe. But he can't just set it up because he's not like the A-side over the whole division type of thing. Canelo is. When it comes to middleweights or super middleweights, Canelo has a great resume. He's known, he's respected. He's been fighting since he was 15. He's a known commodity. So he has the pull and the ability, if he wants to make any of these fights. I told you, the walls are closing in. Canelo is, he's looking at Billy Joe Saunders and Golovkin. And at this point, who's looking like more of a threat? Beterbiev, right? David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, Jermall Charlo, Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, or Kovalev, who almost got stopped by Anthony Yard and was in his 30s and getting kicked off of airplanes and kicking dogs and choking bitches out and, all this weird stuff, extracurricular activities, or Billy Joe Saunders, who gives you weird performances and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're horrible against bad competition, like his last fight against Marcelo Esteban Corceres on the KSI Logan Paul 2 rematch card, where it was a stinker. That's who Canelo wants to fight, but David Benavidez is calling you out and you don't want to fight him. He's just running out of options. And now that Benavidez's team is being vocal and saying Canelo's knees are shot, it's up to Canelo to prove them wrong. And I never understood why Canelo wants the quote-unquote Mexican dates, right? It's all about Hispanic pride and, I own those dates and I want those dates, but you don't want to fight a Mexican on the Mexican. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. Cinco de Mayo weekend, or Mexican Independence Day weekend, you want to claim the dates and there's relevant fights with other guys that are Mexican American and or Mexican, and you're dismissing them. So how does this work? You don't want to fight the black fighters like Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, who's on DAZN, because the reason why I know they don't want to fight him is because when is Andrade's name ever even in the contract? And if, as far as Charlo, if he wanted to fight Charlo, then why did he become the franchise champion when Charlo was his mandatory? So you don't want to fight them, probably because their stylistically, bigger guys with more of an American style. Andrade's real slippery, southpaw, blah, blah, blah. Long reach. Charlo, long reach, crazy jab. Longer arms, bigger. But then you're saying you don't want to fight Mexican fighters, and there's relevant Mexican fighter like Zordo Ramirez at 175. That would be a crazy fight. Or Mexican-American David Benavidez, whose team is calling you out. It's just, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You want to be the face of Mexico. That's cool. You want the Mexican dates? That's cool. I get it. But why don't you want to fight David Benavidez? You want to keep fighting Europeans and Eastern European fighters like Amir Khan, Liam Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Rocky Fielding, Matthew Hatton, Ryan Rhodes. Like, we already know Canelo does well. I've been saying the same thing. We already know. That's how you know it's a gimmick. Like, he has a great resume, but the thing that people don't like, I'm not taking credit away from Canelo. He's actually one of my favorite fighters to watch, but I got to keep it a buck, like a dollar store. I got to keep it a buck. The bottom line is Canelo is a very good fighter, very, very good fighter, but he hasn't really showed much separation in a lot of his elite fights. What I mean by separation is where he left nothing to the imagination and dog walks on. Even the Jacobs fight, I thought he looked super sharp in the first 5 rounds, but then he has to sort out his conditioning and his stamina, because after that point, Jacobs started to come alive and Canelo looked like a totally different fighter from the first 5 rounds. I'm like, what is this? And then Jacobs made the fight a lot closer, like to the point where you could almost say draw-ish, a draw-ish fight, right? The Triple G fights, there's still people who believe that Triple G won 1 or 2 of those fights, right? The fight with Floyd, he already lost that. Erislandy Lara, super close, and a lot of people, including myself, believe Erislandy Lara edged it, based on Canelo losing so many early rounds in that particular fight. Austin Trout fight was close. So it's Canelo has a great resume, but if you think about it, he has a great resume without defined wins. Like, Manny Pacquiao has wins where he convincingly beat a great name at a great time, like Keith Thurman. Pacquiao beat Keith Thurman when he was undefeated. Keith Thurman was a belt holder and he was undefeated, and he had already had experience fighting Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, as well as Diego Chavez, Jesus Soto Caras, etc., right? And Pacquiao beat him. Pacquiao beat a legend like De La Hoya, Hall of Famer. Ricky Hatton stretched him. He only had 1 loss to Floyd, right? He beat Juan Manuel Marquez, legend, right? He beat Eric Morales bad in the 2nd and 3rd fight. He beat Marco Antonio Barrera. He beat Le Duaba, right? So he beat certified guys to the point where he beat him. And like, you can say, okay, the Marquez fights were close, but there's still other guys where he beat them convincingly. Floyd beat Corrales, Chico Corrales, rest in peace. He beat him convincingly. 4 knockdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Arturo Gatti, convincingly, right? He beat Canelo convincingly. Ricky Hatton decisively knocked him out, made him hit the turnbuckle, WWE style. But Canelo, if you really think about it, his better names, he has not really showed you that type of separation. So David Benavidez, he's a young guy. Wouldn't this be like similar, but not even exactly what Mayweather did? Mayweather was about 37, 38 when he fought 23-year-old Canelo, right? And Mayweather dog walked Canelo. Canelo's probably 30 and David Benavidez, let's say he's 23, somewhere around there, 23, 24. So he's a couple years younger than you and he's calling for you. Why don't you do what Floyd did to you, to him? Show the young pup that he ain't ready to romp with the big dogs for the doghouse rules. Canelo. So it makes me believe what Jose Benavidez Sr. is saying, that Canelo's team, they must know something. Like, maybe his knees are shot, because you have to understand Canelo came up in Mexico and he turned pro at age 15. So by the time he fought Floyd Mayweather, here's a fun fact, fun fact. He fought Floyd Mayweather. Let's say Floyd Mayweather was 45-0. Canelo had like 44 fights. They were within a fight or 2 of each other. So the quality of opposition was clearly different. Mayweather clearly had a better body of work with more recognizable names, but it just goes to show you that Canelo had to learn on the job, as is the case for a lot of Mexican fighters who come up in without amateur pedigree. And you know, he had to just fight and fight club fighters or whoever until he started getting to the Shane Mosleys and Baldomirs eventually and Jose Cito Lopez. And then he started getting to the bigger names like the Mayweathers, Lattas, and later Triple G, etc. Right? So that is a lot of wear and tear on your body. He's been fighting since he's 15, he's about to be 30. So he's had a long career. And he got hurt in the Golovkin second fight, Danny Jacobs fight. Jacobs hit him with some big shots late in the fight. I know I could think of this one sequence where Danny, like, Canelo rolled with it a little bit, but he got hit with a huge right, you know? And that's the problem. Sometimes being tough and having grit and having a chin, that's cool, but you can't rely on it. And Canelo's never been a guy where he had like the crazy legs to move around, so he's still more flat-footed and he has good upper body movement, but his stamina needs sorting out. And you know, he's going to be in there with bigger guys now, like David Benavidez, and even Caleb Plant's probably bigger than him. So, you know, the walls are closing in for Canelo. That's why Canelo's talking about retiring at a pretty young age, because he's had a long career. Despite when you figured Canelo out, like when you first started hearing about him, he's been fighting since he was 15, as I mentioned. So he has had a long career. But it's heating up with the David Benavidez pops calling out Canelo. David's called him out. You know, people need to push for the fight. Old media, see, this is what they don't want to push for the fight. They want to push for any other fight, but when it's certain guys, they don't want to push for the fight. Like I said, it behooves me how Canelo can say he wants the Mexican dates, but then it seems like it makes all the sense in the world to fight a fellow Hispanic fighter on a Mexican date and make it really festive. And then Canelo doesn't want to fight him. But then you don't want to fight Charlo or Andrade, or you don't want to fight Beterbiev. So it's looking like you don't want to fight none of the guys who are more threatening to your style. You'd rather fight Eastern European fighters that have more of a basic up and down style that we know you do good with. Not a good look. But let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. If you love what I'm doing, smash the like button. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego, signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button. And you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.